Is Europe's worry about climate change unintentionally making China more rich and powerful? Global leaders are dealing with these urgent climate issues, and Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Union, talked about it at the last climate summit in Dubai. Europe wants to be the leader of the pack in eco-friendly practices, but this could make China stronger. In this video, we explore how Europe's climate goals might help China economically. In a defining moment, at the climate summit, Ursula echoed words that reverberate through the corridors of progress. She said, "Fellow leaders, today it is all about implementation. And I want to focus on two powerful tools, finance and partnerships. Climate finance is one of the core topics in the coming years. But it is not just about money, it's also about trust. Last year, the European Union contributed close to $30 billion in climate finance to developing countries. We have consistently delivered to meet the 100 billion target, and we are fully committed to doubling finance for adaptation. Moreover, it is a priority for us to make sure that the new loss damage fund can start without delay. It's already announced that €25 million from the European Union budget will be available right away to help operationalize this fund. And I'm pleased to hear that several member states also announced contributions to make sure that the fund is up and running in no time. But more is needed. We need to move from billions to trillions. To get there, we need to find new sources of revenue. First, I fully support the new levies to raise more money for climate action. Second, we have to grow the green bond market, especially in developing countries. Green bonds facilitate the flow of private capital in green projects. Therefore, we have launched the Global Green Bond Initiative to attract private capital to developing countries. And third, we have to expand carbon pricing. In Europe, we have nearly 2 decades of experience in carbon pricing. Let me give you 2 figures. In this period, emissions covered by our system went down by almost 40%. The economy kept growing, and we have raised over €175 billion in revenues, and these revenues are going to climate action, including in developing countries. So we teamed up with the EMF, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization to scale up carbon markets and to develop criteria for true carbon credits. And of course, we have to reform the international financial architecture. Especially that last sentence is quite interesting, as it clearly explains how Ursula plans to fund her ambitious project. The straightforward truth is that the European Union doesn't actually have the billions or trillions she talks about. So they might either print money, as was done during the COVID pandemic, risking economic consequences for citizens. Alternatively, taxes could be significantly increased, but that comes with serious consequences too. Dissatisfaction is growing as people are tired of rising taxes and increasing rules, especially regarding climate regulations. To address this discontent, the European Union has introduced the digital wallet and the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, also known as the digital euro. However, with the central bank digital currency and the digital wallet, the European Union gains complete control over its citizens, including their finances. The drawback of climate policy lies in the imposition of stricter standards on the European domestic industries as a result of the 2015 Paris Agreement. Ironically, the European Union has permitted China's inclusion in the World Trade Organization, and even though China did sign the 2015 Paris Agreement and is, on the surface, willing to participate in the fight against climate change, it notably violates just about all agreements with partner countries. The European Union, on the other hand, is trying to be the best boy in class and follows the progressive model of "we are in it together and time is running out," and sets its own goals regarding carbon dioxide emissions, hoping that China will follow suit, which will not happen, of course. It only creates the likelihood that the European Union will even further impose higher taxes and stricter regulations on its own industry. Unfortunately, these rules and regulations are not applicable to imports. This policy forces the leading industrial companies to flee Europe and relocate their factories to China, manufacturing goods there and subsequently selling them in Europe again. China will be the dark horse because it grows wealthier and more influential on a global scale. And the so-called climate change objectives of the European Union, these are nothing more than a sham. The extended transportation distances lead to higher fuel consumption and emissions, thereby contributing to a rise in environmental degradation. To put it plain and simple, Europe's manufacturing industry will be situated in a country with lower environmental standards. So in the end, the pollution will reach our doorsteps anyhow. But strangely enough, the European Union national statistics will only show that the climate change targets have misleadingly been improved, which may seem like good news. However, this is due to a false set of measurement methods. Carbon dioxide from biomass, for example, is not measured due to peculiar legislation influenced by biomass sellers. And also the emissions from international shipping, which is on the rise, are not considered in this measurement method. Meanwhile, China's emissions are rising exponentially, a logical outcome of the production being shifted. Those who refuse to understand still see this as a success, but are completely missing the bigger picture. Already, 60 of the leading industrial companies in Germany formed an alliance and stated that if this European Union policy is maintained for the next 10 years, there will be no more industry left in Germany, making it one of the poorest countries in Europe. And if Germany goes down the drain, a lot of other European countries will follow suit as they depend heavily on the German economy. In this very realistic future scenario, the European Union will have another massive problem because the tap of the European Union expenditure is predominantly paid by the Northern European countries. The European Union harbors the illusion that the bloc can independently regulate the world's climate change. Keeping an eye on the environment is never a bad thing, admirable even. And if Western economies can genuinely transition to the post-fossil era, it is commendable for multiple reasons. However, the current European Union climate policy only results in harmful side effects, along with an increase in global carbon dioxide emissions. Such emotionally driven policies are formed by individuals lacking rationality. A particularly unpleasant side effect, rarely discussed, is that with the relocation of European industry, not only does pollution increase and shift, but so do profits. Each time well-intentioned, progressive Westerners, driven by a misplaced sense of guilt, force an industry to relocate to China, the resulting profits are likewise retained in China. China accumulates those profits and uses them to acquire strategic assets in the West through state-owned banks. The obsession with climate change therefore weakens democracies and makes them more dependent on China. China's trade balance equals the country's exports minus its imports. Forcing European industries to relocate to China leads to increased exports and, consequently, benefits for China, all the while allowing the rise in China's carbon dioxide emissions as sanctioned by the 2015 Paris Agreement. The growth of China's wealth visibly correlates proportionally with the increase in emissions. There is absolutely no environmental gain whatsoever. On the contrary, China is only becoming richer and more powerful and, furthermore, establishing its status of leading country in the world. That is the sole outcome of the European Union's climate policy. The solution. Believe it or not, but there is a no-nonsense fix. Cut the taxes and loosen those silly European Union's regulations. The intentions might be right, but Europe is trying to be holier than the Pope. Don't. That leading by example philosophy is like expecting your pet rock to fetch the morning paper. Get real, because this will never happen. In the real world of business, that idea is completely useless. Global consumption will not become less. What you can't cook up at home, your competition just orders in. So things need to be shaken up a little bit. The European Union should break up with the World Trade Organization, give China the "it's not me, it's you" speech, and increase some of the import tariffs to spice things up. And before you know it, the European industry is the comeback kid. As we continue to address global environmental challenges, it's crucial for the European Union to move beyond wishful thinking. The notion that being the goody two-shoes will miraculously change everyone else's behavior is just that, wishful thinking. It's time for a reality check.